Tag TV and Tag Radio be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. The Celtic Tiger. Is it poised for a comeback? Once Ireland boasted one of the world's most vibrant open economies. Mid to the late 90s, it saw years of double-digit GDP growth boasted by large-scale foreign direct investment and exports. GDP growth dipped during the immediate post-September 11, 2001 global economic slowdown. Yet throughout the latter part of the decade, the country averaged the best performance for that period among the original EU 15 member states. Experiencing challenging economic conditions in 2009, the Irish government cut a deal with the EU. By 2010, exports grew, albeit slowly, and are considered the main driver of expected modest growth by the end of this year. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, March 28, 2011, and this is a very special global-focused edition of Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. Is the Celtic Tiger ready to make a comeback? In this edition, we visit with one of Georgia's longest and closest international relationships, Ireland, as Tino speaks with the first Consul General for Ireland in Atlanta, Consul General Paul Gleeson. Consul General Gleeson heads Ireland's first new consulate in the United States since the 1930s, and the first ever to be located in the southeastern region of the U.S. Consul General Gleeson took his office in Atlanta August of 2010. Prior to his historic appointment here, he had responsibility for North-South cooperation within Ireland's Department of Foreign Affairs. He has served at the Embassy of Ireland in South Africa, at the permanent representation of Ireland to the European Union in Brussels, and at Ireland's mission to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. Why Atlanta, and why now? Just what is the status of Ireland and Georgia's long and successful two-way economic relationship? From direct foreign investment to prospects for economic recovery, enhancing Irish-U.S., especially Georgia's, relationships and economic opportunity as Tino goes global and as we welcome Ireland's first ever historic southeastern consulate, and we go inside the Irish-Georgia nearly 3-century-old relationship with Atlanta's first Consul General of Ireland, Paul Gleeson.
Consul Gleeson, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today.
Thank you, Tino. It's great to be on the program.
Well, it's exciting to have you here in the Atlanta area and speaking for all us Atlantans and Georgians. Welcome. As I understand it, this is the first consulate office that's been open in the United States since the 1930s. I think
that's right.
1933. Is that the right date?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, but we're very excited to be here. It's great to be here. It's in the early days of Irish independence, we quickly set up our embassy in D.C. and consulates in maybe more traditional Irish cities like New York, Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. But we looked at it again in the last few years, and we asked ourselves, where do we need to be that we're not? And Atlanta really jumped off the map in that respect. So it's very exciting to be here. As you say, it's our first consulate in the United States since 1933, and our first anywhere in the South. So it's a real exciting development, and we cut the ribbon on the new consulate last month with Governor Deal and Mayor Reid and our ambassador Michael Collins from Washington. So it's very exciting to be here. It's a part of the world with a really rich Irish and Scots-Irish heritage. For more than 300 years, the Irish and Scots-Irish have played a huge role in the growth and development of this state. And we're here to pay tribute to that and to try and forge new linkages as well in business, science, and culture. So it's a great place to be.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into that. as you looked at in terms of the decision, I think you've touched on some of the points, but I assume that part of this is that you see a good bit of potential between our area and Ireland in respect to doing business. Is that right? And what kind of
I think that's fair. That's very fair, yeah. Like, I mean, there are a number of companies here who have been key partners of Ireland for many years. Companies like Coca-Cola, like UPS, like Delta. And in that sense, and in many others, Atlanta is a real regional hub here. And certainly if you look at where the growth is going to be in the United States over the next 20 years, if you look at the census projections, so much of that growth is going to be in states like Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. So this is a part of the world in which we haven't had as much of a base previously. Our investment agency, the IDA, are based here in Atlanta, but we haven't had a consulate up and until now. So, as I said, yes, it's very much a place we want to be. Great companies here, great Irish success stories here, like Oldcastle, like Elan Drug Technologies, like Lincor Solutions, and also great universities here. Georgia Tech opened its first applied science facility outside the US in 2006, opened it in Ireland, and Emory University as well has wonderful Irish connections, great Irish literary archives, and great Irish studies program as well. So there's many great reasons to be in Atlanta.
Well, as I said, we're happy to have you. Moving along, Ireland has attracted a lot of international press. Of course, we're very, not as, I think probably in America, we're not always as conscious of what's happening in other parts of the world as other parts of the world are about what's happening in America. But that being said, there's certainly been a lot of press about Ireland. And what was the impetus of that, do you think? And what are the prospects in terms of the economic recovery over, say, the coming months? And I'm sure that's already, is it taking place like it is in the U.S. now?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, everybody's predicting we'll have a return to growth in Ireland this year in 2011, which is very encouraging. But just to go back through it, like, I mean, you're right. We've come through a very difficult few months in Ireland, and we've garnered a lot of international headlines that we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves. Right. We had what some people have called a plain vanilla property boom and bust in Ireland. And we're dealing with the outfall of that now, both in terms of its effect on the public finances and in terms of its effect on our banking system. And we're taking aggressive action in both those spheres to try and combat the problems. But as you say, those difficulties, we're not unique in facing those challenges. Lots of parts of the world are. And we're getting on with the job pretty aggressively. For the last 2.5 years, we've been cutting back on our public expenditure, and we've been dealing with the problem in our banks, and we're going to have big stress tests on the banks, the results of which will be announced on Thursday. So we're dealing aggressively with those challenges, and at the same time, I think we're seeing some positive signals emerging now in terms of our return to economic growth. Our exports increased very significantly last year, increased by 18% to the US, which is a huge figure. And we're seeing some very positive indications in those respects. And I think crucially as well, the kind of the factors which have underpinned the strong US-Irish economic relationship, those still remain very much in play. We have a low corporation tax rate of just 12.5% in Ireland. We have great availability of skilled labour. The World Competitiveness Yearbook ranks Ireland 4th in the world for our availability of skilled labour, 4th in the world for our openness to new ideas, and 6th in the world in terms of labour force productivity. So I think we've an awful lot to work with there. We're an English-speaking gateway, obviously, to the European Union, which is very encouraging, I know, for American business when they're looking at the possibility of operations in Europe and in terms of where they might locate. So I think we've every reason to be optimistic going forward.
Well, and this past Sunday evening, you mentioned the 12.5% tax rate. There was a 60-minute special. I'm not sure if you caught it, but they talked about the U.S. tax rate being 35%, as I'm sure you know. So there is a distinct advantage in respect to doing investment, American companies doing investment overseas, particularly in friendly climates in respect to their tax rates, like Ireland. Is that still a major priority for Ireland in terms of attracting foreign investment?
Yeah, I think it's been a big part of our economy. Even when we're talking there about our corporation tax rate, Ireland's policy of low taxes on business goes back to the 1950s. It goes back more than 50 years and long before and long predates Ireland's membership even of the European Union or the European Economic Community as it was back then. So it's always been a cornerstone of our industrial policy, and it enjoys, in the example, say, of our corporation tax rate again, that enjoys support from all the parties in the Irish Parliament. So I think that kind of pro-business outlook is very much the case in Ireland, and it's part of the reason, and that, again, the availability of skilled labour, our the English-speaking nature of the country and so on. They're part of the reason that we have been so successful in terms of attracting foreign direct investment. And if you look at it now, I think 8 of the top 10 ICT, information communications technology companies in the world are based in Ireland. 8 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world are based in Ireland. And their household names, Google, Facebook, Intel, Microsoft, they're all there. Intel announced a 500 million euro upgrade on its facilities last year, and last year also turned out to be one of our best years in many years in terms of attracting foreign direct investment. I think we had 126 new announcements in terms of foreign direct investments in Ireland last year. So that environment, despite some of the negative headlines we touched on earlier, that environment for foreign direct investment is still very, very good in Ireland, and we've had very good recent months and years in those respects. I think one of the silver linings, perhaps, on the cloud of Ireland's recent economic difficulties is that labour costs have come down in Ireland, and we've become more competitive in terms of wage costs, in terms of price costs, rental costs, and so on. And I think that's seen very much as a good thing, both by companies who are located in Ireland already and others who are considering that as a location for foreign direct investment in the future.
Well, let's look at the other side of the equation, because we would hope, and I think this is the case, that it's a two-way economic relationship. So are Irish companies looking to invest and investing in the United States, and particularly, I guess I'd focus on the Southeast, but anywhere in the U.S.?
Very much so. And you're completely right when you pin down a two-way economic relationship. That is very much what we consider it to be. I mentioned foreign direct investment in Ireland, and U.S. companies employ in excess of 100,000 people in Ireland. But if you look here as well, Irish companies are employing some 80,000 workers across the United States in every single state in the Union. And I know TAG's concerns are more here in Georgia. We've got lots of great Irish companies here in Georgia as well. The firm Oldcastle, the building materials company, have their headquarters here. They employ some 35,000 workers across the United States, again in every state in the Union. A remarkable successful story. Elam Drug Technologies here in Gainesville, a very successful Elam plant here. Linkcore Solutions, a new, young, innovative Irish company who are coming out, who are selling very innovative equipment in terms of hospital portal machinery, and a number of others who are now dipping a toe in the water, and we are making that case, I guess, for them. And Governor Deal touched on this recently. I guess consulates, when they are set up in Atlanta, in some ways become ambassadors for Atlanta within their host government. And you do find that is the case, and certainly I've been making the case strongly that our Irish companies, when they're looking to the U.S., there may previously have been a tendency to look at New York or look at San Francisco, look at Boston. We're saying to them now, you need to look south, you need to look at the southeast and look at the opportunities that arise here, because, as I said, this is where a lot of the growth is going to be, and we want our Irish companies on the ground so that they're in a position to take advantage of that. And I think, as I said, more and more are doing so. If you arrive now in the United States and you get your eyes or your fingerprint scanned, that's technology by an Irish company, Dayan, that you're using. If you're getting a stent implanted in your body anywhere in the world, there's an 80% chance it will come from an Irish company, Crogana Tax Medical. And the other example that I use here, the most uplifting story in all of last year, the release of the Chilean miners, that was technology designed by an Irish company, Mincon, that made the breakthrough to establish the lifeline to the miners. So we've these great success stories all over the place, and we want to be highlighting those through the consulate and bringing more of them to Atlanta and to Georgia as well.
I have time for one more question, and it would be along the lines of, you're new here, office was open last month. Are there ways that you're looking to build on the Irish-U.S. relationship? If you were to look, say, a couple of years down the road, what would you like to have seen happen at that point in time in terms of the relationship here and then also the broader U.S.-Irish relationship?
Yeah, I mean, here we talked about business linkages, and that's very much to the fore of what we're doing. We'd also love to see more tourists from this part of the world come and visit Ireland. I think it's a great place to come visit. I'm biased, obviously, but the statistics would tell us a similar story. I think some 94% of visitors to Ireland say that their visit afterwards matched or exceeded their already high pre-visit expectations, and that's one of the highest statistics in the world in terms of customer satisfaction. And so obviously we've been making the case here that it's a great place to go and play golf, it's a great place to visit ancestors, it's a great place to just go and enjoy the countryside as well. And I think building linkages with some of the universities here as well is another key one for us. I mentioned the great linkages we have with Georgia Tech and Emory, and we want to foster those and build those to an even greater extent. Also in terms of attracting more students from this part of the world to come and experience Ireland as a place to study. That's one of our key objectives here. We've got some of the top 100 universities in the world in Ireland, and there are places that you can go to study again in an English-speaking country and at quite competitive prices. So there are some of the other linkages we want to build up here. And I think when you refer more broadly to the Irish-US relationship as well, I think that's still a hugely positive one. We're very excited that President Obama will be visiting Ireland in May. Our new Taoiseach, Enda Kenny, was just out with the President at the White House for St. Patrick's Day. And I think that relationship is a very strong one now. And it's one that's coming to be more and more defined by our strong economic relationship. We had obviously a great relationship with the United States through the years of our peace process, and certainly the great successes that have been achieved there couldn't have been achieved without the remarkable help we received from our U.S. friends on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. And that's positioned us and brought us to a place now whereby the relationship is much more economic in nature and defined by links in terms of business, science and culture. And I think that's where we're going forward very much, and where I think there's great potential for further growth over the coming years.
Well, Consul General, I appreciate your time today, and thanks for, again, being here and looking to build the relationship. And based on what you said, certainly our listeners well know it's already a strong relationship, so just making it stronger. And thanks for joining me on Tech Talk.
Thank you, Tino. It was a pleasure to be here, and a pleasure to get to know the work of TAG here as well. You guys are doing a great job for Atlanta, and we're delighted to be here working with you.
Thank you very much.